The villains in Hoppers are actually quite dangerous. From genocides, terrorist acts, and even kidnappings, it makes us wonder if Hoppers is really an environmental movie or actually a film about the most dangerous cartel in all of Pixar. Let's take a look at the crimes committed by the villains in Hoppers. Mayor Jerry. Mayor Jerry really got on my nerves when I watched the movie. Although, let's be honest, deep down he knew that what he was doing was wrong. But that doesn't mean he's going to escape being sentenced for his crimes. First of all, he tries to illegally build his highway over a protected natural habitat. But to do this, he illegally installs noise-making devices so that the animals get annoyed by the sound and end up leaving the area, so that the government will give him permission to build it. So the demolitions and explosions he carried out were illegal. Aside from the possible hearing damage he caused to several species and for unfairly taking away their home, here he committed environmental fraud by manipulating the ecosystem to make it seem like there were no animals, so he could go ahead with his construction. This is a very serious crime that would get him 5 years in prison and a $250,000 fine. On top of that, he damaged the protected habitat, which would get him another 5 years in prison and another $150,000 fine. Also, let's not forget the damage he did to the wildlife, which luckily wasn't very serious, so he'd only get 1 year in prison and a $10,000 fine. Lastly, he abused his power by using his position to manipulate the government and carry out his constructions, which would get him 10 years in prison and a $50,000 fine. From there, the mayor just stayed at home, boosting his ego as he saw how much people adored him. And his next crime happened when he was kidnapped by Mabel herself. By the way, if you haven't seen the video about the crimes Mabel committed, I'll leave it here on this card so you can watch it when you finish this video. Since the Animal Council was chasing him, he started driving like a madman to save his life. But even in the end, he thought that it was all just a dream. So he simply decided not to grab the steering wheel and let his car fly off, putting the lives of the animals he had inside with him at risk. This adds the crime of reckless driving, which would get him 6 months in jail and a $500 fine. Negligent driving for letting go of the steering wheel and saying it was just a dream, which will get him 3 months in jail and another $500 fine. And finally, endangering the lives of others, which would get him a year in prison and a $1,000 fine, since luckily there was hardly anyone on that road. So Mayor Jerry's crimes add up to environmental fraud, destruction of protected habitat, harm to wildlife, abuse of public power, reckless driving, negligent driving, and endangering the lives of others. His total sentence would be 22 years and 9 months, a fine of $561,000. And in addition to that, he would also receive the penalty of immediate removal from his position as mayor, disqualification from holding public office, and the obligation to pay for the restoration of the destroyed natural habitat, and a very likely court order to permanently cancel the construction of his highway. The Animal Council. King George himself warned us that the Animal Council had its dark side, but we didn't expect them all to become terrorists. When Mabel calls the Animal Council to ask for help with the mayor, everything gets out of control. And they understand that, since the mayor is threatening each of their habitats, the best thing they can do is kill him. That's how directly they go so far as to conspire against the mayor, which would get them a fine of $10,000 for each member, making a total of $50,000. Let's remember that he was the king of the birds, the amphibians, the reptiles, the fish, and the insects, besides a life sentence for each one of them. After Mabel refused to assassinate the mayor, the council tried to capture her by force, including George, which led to a very dangerous chase in which they even destroyed the scientists Robot Rabbit and Robot Bird. So there was attempted kidnapping, punishable by 20 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. Criminal threats, since they told them they would crush them too, which would get them 5 years in prison and a $5,000 fine. And finally, they destroyed the scientists' robots, which would get them a fine of approximately $50,000 for the damage. From there, things get much more dangerous, since while chasing Mayor Jerry, they performed several maneuvers to try to stop and kill him. To the point that they even threw a shark at his car. They also caused the scientists to crash and almost lose their lives. For this attempted murder, they would be sentenced to 20 years in prison and fined $10,000. Apart from the dangerous maneuver of using the shark, it adds another 5 years in prison and a $5,000 fine. And finally, they almost caused the scientists to die, which gives them 1 year in prison and a $1,000 fine. From here, after Mabel crashed along with the mayor, they tried to escape, but the scientists capture Mabel, and then the council captures and kidnaps everyone. When they wake up, they are in the laboratory, and they're threatening the scientists so they'll build them a robot shaped like the mayor. And this is where their plan to use the hearing devices on humans begins, and even cause them brain damage and death. So with that kidnapping, false imprisonment, extortion, criminal threats, terrorism, coercion, conspiracy, and the use of a dangerous weapon, they would get a sentence of 63 years in prison and $305,000, in addition to 2 life sentences. Anyway, the Animal Council adds up the crimes of conspiracy to commit murder by several members, attempted kidnapping, criminal threats, destruction of technological property by the 2 robots, attempted murder, assault with a dangerous object, endangering the lives of others, kidnapping of multiple victims, false imprisonment, criminal coercion, forced labor, domestic terrorism, conspiracy to commit mass murder, use of a dangerous weapon to cause mass death, which leaves us with a total sentence of 109 years in prison, 3 life sentences, and $436,000 in fines distributed among the members of the council. So yes, the Animal Council not only tried to save their habitat, they ended up accumulating enough charges to spend several full lifetimes in prison. King Titus I would say that King Titus was the real villain of the movie, since he was the only one who truly had very evil intentions deep in his heart. Since right after Mabel killed her mom, he was very happy because he said he had been waiting for that moment to finally be able to rule properly. He was the one who pushed the plan to destroy human brains even further. And this already qualifies as terrorism, conspiracy to commit mass murder, incitement to commit murder, and the use of a dangerous weapon to commit genocide. Just with that alone, he already has 2 life sentences, 30 years in prison, and a $280,000 fine. Oh, and by the way, let's remember that he was the one who got into the mayor's robot body to trick everyone and trap them so he could fry their brains. This already counts as impersonation, public deception, and stealing not just the robot itself, but also the mayor's cell phone. These would add 8 years and 6 months in prison, with a fine of approximately $50,000. In total, King Titus is charged with the crimes of domestic terrorism, conspiracy to commit mass murder, incitement to commit murder, use of a dangerous weapon to cause mass death, impersonation of a public official, fraud or public deception, theft of personal property, and theft of experimental technology. Which leaves us with a total approximate sentence of 2 life sentences, years, and 6 months of additional imprisonment. $330,000 in fines.
Although, well, he was spared from paying for all this since the Frog King ended up eating him.
Anyway, I just have to mention that the scientists also committed a few crimes, and I'll tell you quickly in case you're curious. The scientists are only fined for letting Mabel use the Hopper's technology without authorization. As an experimental subject, putting her life at risk by using a device that could affect her brain. And also for the chase they carried out in their vehicle while trying to get Mabel back, during which they drove dangerously. This is classified as violation of research protocols, scientific negligence, endangering a person's safety, and reckless driving, which would give them 3 years and 6 months in prison, $21,000 in fines, and that the Hopper's project be cancelled and all the technology developed be confiscated. Suspension of the research permits. Temporary ban on conducting human experiments. What did you think about the crimes that appeared in Hoppers? Did you know there were so many? And of course, don't forget to watch the video about the crimes Mabel committed in the movie. We'll be seeing you in the Thanks for watching the